Nobody has ever done what we've done in the last 4 years.
Their entire economic plan, tax cuts for the rich and corporations.
And record-breaking unemployment.
The worst jobs report on record.
Trump is the only modern president to leave office with fewer jobs than when he took office.
The Trump administration formally asking the Supreme Court to overturn the Affordable Care Act. This could leave up to 23 million Americans without coverage.
I hope that they end. It'll be so good if they end.
You also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion? Yes or no?
There has to be some form of punishment.
For the woman?
Yeah, there has to be some form.
And if I win, we will treat those people from January 6th fairly. And if it requires pardons, we will give them pardons.
Earlier this week that you were still very far apart.
We are. I think we set the stage to carry on further conversations. You know, we only have 15 days really to go. We've got to find a way that we can curve our spending, raise our debt limit, and also...
Working people were struggling to make it long before the pandemic arrived. Big corporations and the very wealthy were doing very well before the pandemic. That's why I've said, starting back in my campaign for president, that it's not enough to just build back. We have to build back better than before. And that's how it all begins. Big corporations and the super wealthy have to start paying their fair share of taxes. It's long overdue. I'm not a
All along the way during the negotiations between the Republicans and Joe Biden about the raising of the debt ceiling, the Republicans have been asking for a lot of stuff. Some of it is just wild policy goals that has nothing to do whatsoever with the economy. They've completely discounted the possibility of things like raising taxes. Obviously, their approach is protecting the rich. They want to go even beyond just raising revenue off the rich, though. They want to protect them for the financial crimes that they commit. And it looks like Joe Biden might actually be willing to play ball on some of that. Specifically, they have been seeking to roll back some of the additional funding that the IRS is slated to receive. And it looks like Biden is going to agree with them. As it stands right now, according to the New York Times, they're going to take $10 billion of the $80 billion Congress already approved last year for an IRS crackdown on high earners and corporations that evade taxes, though that provision was still under discussion. So they're going to cut it effectively by $10 billion according to the last deal. I'm sure that number won't go up between now and when they finally finalize it. Democrats have previously championed the initiative. Nonpartisan scorekeepers have said the funding would reduce the budget deficit by helping the government collect more of the tax revenue it's owed. But Republicans have denounced it, claiming falsely that the money would be used to fund an army of auditors to go after working people. And when they say fund an army of auditors, they mean that quite literally. They have spread the myth that they are going to be giving thousands of guns to auditors who are going to like kick down the door of people who make $20,000 a year because that's how they're going to raise a bunch of money. This is like the perfect encapsulation of this entire negotiation process. They say that they want to lower the deficit and lower the debt, but they won't do any of the things that would actually do that. So they're not going to raise taxes, they're not going to raise money. They've carved out entire areas, including the military, that can never be cut, and then in fact will get additional spending, as we'll show you, even though everything else needs to be cut. And they're going to cut $10 billion there, even though they know that is going to result in more tax evasion by the wealthy, specifically because it's going to lead to more tax evasion by the wealthy, and they were elected to protect those wealthy people. Those tax evaders are the same people that are at the cocktail parties that they go to. They are their donors. This is explicitly allowing for more criminality. And it really ties into the point you were making earlier, Cenk, about how are the Democrats not pointing out how obviously weak on crime the Republicans are. That is the only excuse for this, is allowing for more elite crime. One would think that Republicans who say they're tough on crime and say that they're against the elites would maybe be willing to listen to that sort of message.
Okay, so this is not about deficit reduction. In fact, it's the exact opposite, because there's different estimates by different organizations, all nonpartisan. I wrote about this in my book. The book is called Justice is Coming, where for every dollar that you cut from the IRS, you actually cost the US government at a minimum $6. Some estimates have it as high as $24. So if you cut $10 billion from the IRS budget, you're actually going to put $60 to $240 billion hole in the deficit. You're going to make the deficit worse because their job is to go get tax revenue from tax cheats, people who are doing tax fraud. They go, you give the agents, this is not, and by the way, this doesn't apply to anyone making under $400,000 a year, okay? So this is literally only targeting the rich. So this is just turned into deficit addition, not deficit reduction. Because the deficit reduction was never the point. As Farron mentioned earlier in the show, the Republicans in 2 weeks are going to introduce a bill to create another $3.5 trillion hole in the deficit through a tax cut for the rich, of course. All of this has been about wealth redistribution. So now look, before I rip into Biden in this, I want you to understand the context that this is one of the things that he did in the Inflation Reduction Act, where they added IRS agents to go after people, the rich, so that we can collect more revenue and to stop their cheating, right? And I gave him credit for that, so let's watch. This is a rare situation where you have to give the entire Democratic Party credit. It doesn't happen often, but they passed a good bill to audit more people who are wealthy. And in the bill, they clarified that it only applies to people making above $400,000 a year.
Rare credit to the Democrats. They did pass this bill that does audit the rich. And that's kind of unprecedented in Washington.
So there are two different times there. I'm like, hey, way to go, Democrats. They're like, hold on, Cenk. Don't do it. We're going to screw you later. It's all a trick, right? So now here's Biden. The one thing he got right, for sure, is like, nah, just give it back to the Republicans. What? Why wouldn't you fight them? Why wouldn't you do a press conference saying, these idiots said this was a deficit reduction. They come in here, ask to add $240 billion to the deficit. No, I'm not going to help your rich friends, Republicans. Nope. Why? Because Biden wants to do these things. I should have never given him or the Democratic Party any credit. It's a mistake. It's a rookie mistake, naive of me. Because they did pass the bill, and I was like, that is a good provision. I should have known. Of course they're going to give it back to the Republicans. Because you would never, ever want to touch the rich. The rich must be protected at all costs. So, of course, Joe Biden now helping the Republicans to do that.
I think a lot of this also, kind of what both y'all are hitting on, it always comes back to the messaging issue. We've got these hangers-on from the Clinton era who think they're some, political wizards because they got Bill Clinton elected in 1992. Let's ignore that Ross Perot siphoned off a lot of votes, but they think they know better than everybody, and they've been in DC calling the shots as advisors, calling the shots as, the messengers, the strategists, and they're terrible. They're really just that god-awful that they don't know how to go out there and fight anymore. I mean, John brought up a great point. Republicans have literally said, you're going to have armed IRS agents knocking down your door, busting in and saying, show me your taxes right now. Like, that's what some Republicans genuinely believe. That's what we're dealing with, just complete fantasy and fabrication on the right. And the Democrats are like, well, I guess we'll take 10 billion away. I mean, that's good enough for you, right? Do you want 20? We'll take away 20. You're right, the number's gonna change and it's not gonna go back to the original. More money is gonna come off of that because Democrats allowed the Republicans to capture a narrative, a completely fake one. They crafted it out of nothing. And that's what's taken hold to the point where you've got people who say, well, yeah, I don't want the IRS banging on my door. I don't want to increase my risk of audit. And obviously this isn't gonna help the country. If we had been, not we, we're pretty dang good at it, I think. But if the party itself had done a better job of communicating all of this to begin with, if Biden would do that press conference you're talking about, we wouldn't be in this mess whatsoever. But we are, because again, you're talking about the same holdovers for 30 years now, calling the shots with the Democratic Party. And it's time to push those dinosaurs out because they are not good at this anymore.
Yeah. On economic issues, Joe Biden is a Republican. The only thing that stops you from understanding that is mainstream media gaslighting. There's the 14th Amendment is super clear. We don't have to negotiate the public debt. It's crystal clear. He is choosing voluntarily to cut from the average person, as Farron pointed out earlier in the show. They're going to cut from $2 a meal that people get. $2 a meal.
Yeah.
But they're going to give to the rich by making sure they're not audited. Biden always wanted to do that. Everything else is a sham.
You know, I'm not, I'll close on this. Obviously, I'm not a constitutional scholar or whatever. There's been this like debate going back and forth, like, can you read into the 14th Amendment that it would apply to the debt ceiling? And like people have the debate or whatever. The way I approach it is, what else would it apply to? What other situation in American politics would it have anything to do with other than the debt ceiling and it being raised? I don't know. Casual conversation? What else would it apply to? What does questioning it mean other than whether you pay it or not? Anyway, it should be automatic. Biden could have used this opportunity. He didn't even need to, as we said. They could have dealt with it back in December, but anyway, this is where we're at. And at the very least, Cenk, you need to take back 1/8 of your praise for Joe Biden. And
if he could, he'd get rid of the whole thing.
And they might.
So I'll read the 14th Amendment that John is referring to, just so you're clear on it. The validity of the public debt of the United States authorized by law shall not be questioned. John's absolutely right. What else would it apply to?
I'm actually asking that to like political scientists.
Like,
where does that apply?
There's no lack of clarity. I mean, the conservatives hilariously say, plain reading of the Constitution. You can't get more plain reading than that. The only reason we're having this theater, this fake fight, is so that they can give more to the rich, more to their donors, period.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.